Today I will teach you how not to fail your next GLC upgrade, or how Postgres 14 will help you avoid index corruption due to collection changes. So let me introduce myself. My name is Rouhaud. I'm a developer and a DBA, and I've been working on PostgreSQL since 2008, and I never wanted to change ever since. I'm contributing to PostgreSQL and its ecosystem in general, like the extension HypoPG. Collection defines various ordering that you can use to sort your data according to some language-specific rules. Postgres heavily relies on the operating system to provide the various collection that you may use. One example is glibc on GNU Linux. Since PostgreSQL Tema, you can also use the collection provided by ICU. It's a very powerful library that provides configurable collections. Since collections are used to sort the data, they are obviously also used for index creation and maintenance. One very strict requirement for indexes is that the way the data is sorted should never ever change. Obviously, that's an easy requirement for numeric data, for instance. But when it comes to text data, that's another story, because the rules that states how text data should be sorted according to some specific language rules tend to change over time. And also, bugs exist, and various libraries that provide such collection also have inversions that can break this heuristic. So, what happens if the collection library start to change the way the data is sorted? The answer is simple. All indexes that rely on this specific collection can be immediately corrupted or not. That's another problem. It depends on what are the actual data you have in your tables. But if you happen to have impacted data, your indexes will be immediately corrupted. And one problem with that is it won't be a physical corruption, which will be immediately spotted with like some hard errors. It will be some kind of a logical corruption, and this can be hard to spot because the outcome of that is query will start to randomly give wrong results or different results depending on how the index is internally created, or its index is used or not. This also became more problematic recently with 2.28 version of glibc, which broke a lot of collections that were usually very, very stable, like the English collection. There's another extra caveat that's known, and it leads to somewhat frequent reports on the community mailing list. That caveat is when you are using physical replication, and if your different servers have different OS version or just different version of the collection library. If that's the case, you will basically have like the replica, which will always be corrupted with no real way to fix that corruption, unless you fix the root issue, which is you should have the exact same collection library version of both your primary server and all your replicas. Currently, there are only two ways to detect the problem, apart obviously from noticing a query giving the wrong result. One way is to use AMCheck, which is an XML extension provided in the contribs, to perform a check on your indexes. This only works for B3 indexes, and it will perform a very thorough detection of any problems that can exist in your index, not only problems due to collection changes, and it's unfortunately quite costly, so you can't really run that on a very regular basis. The other option is to carefully follow all updates on your servers, on your packages and your collection library, and check every time your library is updated to see if it can change your the collection you are using. Unfortunately, none of those solutions are really practical for something that should be a systematic check. To solve this problem, Postgres will now, since Postgres 12.14, track the collection version when an index is created or reindexed, and it will store all the information needed in the PG-depend catalog table. So there is now a new ref version column that was added. Then, the first time an index is used in any new collection, Postgres will compare the recorded collection version with the one currently installed as your operating system report, and it will raise a warning if they don't match. To be more precise, this will happen the first time the index definition is loaded. So even if you end up not using a specific index in your query, the simple fact of looking at the index is enough to maybe raise that warning. So that's a good thing. Here's a simple example of a warning that can be generated in such case. As you can see, it will give you all the information you need to take further action. You will have the impacted index name, the underlying collection name, and the two versions involved. You can also note that if the index has dependency on different collection, a separate warning will be generated for each of the collection impacted. But if your index has multiple dependency on the same collection, only one message will be raised. Here is an example on how to query the catalog to proactively find the same information. But even before the query, any of your query use the impacted index. It can be a useful check to run after each on your OS update if you want to be sure that you don't have any corruption. Note also that there is a new reg collection, as you can see here. A new reg collection data type which has been introduced to make this kind of query easier to write. So, one question now is what to do when upgrading to Postgres 12.14. As the previous version didn't record the collection version, there is no way to Postgres can know whether the indexes were maybe corrupted or not because it just didn't have this information. So, to avoid like a storm of warning being generated after a PG upgrade, which wouldn't really be helpful, by default PG upgrade will assume that all your indexes were using the current collection version and thus shouldn't be corrupted. So that may or may not be the case for your own index. You have an option if you want the opposite behavior, which is assume that all indexes relying on collection are or may be corrupted. And if you want that behavior, you need to use -- index -collection versions -unknown. It's a bit verbose option. So you can use that option to PG upgrade if you want, and you will get the opposite behavior. So let's now see some limits for that approach. So it's not bulletproof and it can raise false positive warnings. Because what this approach does is check for version change in the underlying collection library. But it's not because a library was updated that it actually changed its ordering and broke your indexes. So what that means is that when you hit the this message, you have a decision to make, and Postgres will not make the decision for you. So one of the decisions you can make when you see such a message, or proactively using the query I showed you earlier, is to simply reindex all the impacted indexes, and this way you'll be sure that you won't have any corruption. It can be obviously a bit costly and consume some resources. So you also have the opportunity to explicitly clear this warning and tell Postgres that you know that the update didn't break your collection, and you can assure that your index is not corrupted. So I really want to stress that out. Like if you manually clear that warning, and if you're wrong for some reasons, you will actually hide some corruption, which is a bad thing to do. So really only use the alternative approach only if you're really sure, and if you have any doubt, please use the Reindex approach. There are also some other limitations. For instance, if your index contains some complex enough expression that use collectible columns, but eventually don't really rely on the sort order for the resulting expression, Postgres will still track the dependency on the collection, even if technically any break in the collection wouldn't actually corrupt your index. So you have here an example of a somewhat artificial example of such use case, but as you can see, the index is like using like a text column and then using an MD5 on that, which still technically could be corrupted in case of collection upgrade, but then the whole expression is using the collection C with just like the raw byte. So this expression can never rely on the collection. But in that case, if the underlying collection for the text call is changed, you will get such a warning. So in such cases, you can manually clear the warning, and there won't be any issue. Another example is varchar pattern ops and text pattern ops. Sorry, there is a typo here. It should be text and varchar pattern ops. And those are known to not rely on the collection sort. So those are actually handled, and if you have such indexes, they will never raise any warning. So here are explicitly how to fix the problem if you hit the warning. So once again, the safe approach is to use a Reindex. So an example is to use a Reindex index on your impacted index. That may be faster than reindexing the whole table if you have a lot of indexes and only a few of them are impacted. And if you are really sure of what you're doing, you can clear the warning using the new alter index, alter collection refresh version. So once again, this can hide corruption. So make sure you really know what you're doing if you're using that. So what can be done on top of this new infrastructure to improve the situation? One thing is a patch is already submitted to introduce new option in Reindex and ReinDexDB to only process indexes that may be corrupted due to outdated collection. So this will ease the DBA work after an update because they will be able to simply run like ReinDexDB dash job equal a lot and filtering that, and it will do everything automatically as fast as possible. There are also some discussion on having a similar approach to track version dependency, but for different kind of objects. As far as I know, there are no submitted proposed patch for now, but it may happen in the next development cycle. So thank you. If you have any question, you can join me with on my blog, on my Twitter, or otherwise I will be available for the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Now we have Julian here connected, and he will answer our questions. Please write the questions in Telegram or in the chat on the platform, and I will translate them to him. So we have one question in the chat. The question is about different collation in various versions of Ubuntu. Mm-hmm. So Alexander Nikitin writes that he made a sorting of strings 11, 11, or 1-1. And the order is different in Ubuntu 14, 18, and 20. Does it mean that if he upgrades the operation system from Ubuntu 14 to Ubuntu 20, he need to make reindexing?
That's quite likely. So in case of Ubuntu, so it's Linux, probably most of the indexes are using glibc. So you have to check the glibc version, so you can do like dbkg-l and see the version of glibc. And if it's different, likely you have to do a global reindex. And the same if you are using ICU. Now, if you have a lot of indexes and it's taking a lot of space, you can try to check for the specific collection you are using. Maybe there won't be the order won't be changed and you'll be safe, but you really have to be careful and check for each specific collection how it changed in the different version. And if one Ubuntu version is below glibc 2.28 and one version is above, like almost all collection will change, and you are probably sure that all your index are corrupted, and there is no way you have to reindex everything.
Okay, Julian, is it possible to have simultaneously two different versions of collation, for example, with two different versions of ICU library inside Postgres, inside one instance?
Not inside Postgres. You can have multiple in your operating system, and some program can use like a version API, but Postgres is not relying on that. So that's not possible right now.
But it could be useful to make some seamless upgrades of the collation versions, maybe.
It could be, yes. I think there was a thread with Peter Geoghegan. I'm not sure why it didn't happen. I think it's like a heavy modification to make that work, and maybe you need to rely on some specific packages on the operating system, but like right now it's not possible. And yes, it would be good, but I don't know why it's not like that.
Probably it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
So next question. Why don't we fix the collation just inside Postgres? Why don't we use built-in collection tables? It can be more reliable than basing on some external resources such as libc or ICU.
Oh, it's because it's like a project in itself, and ICU is actually a bigger project than PostgreSQL. So there is none of the contributor is actually like an expert in collation, and it requires a lot of work to make it work. So it's easier to just rely on external collection library, especially ICU. It's very powerful. You can specify like there is a specific naming for the collation, and you can have like a natural sorting for numbers, which can be useful. You can also have like a case insensitive collation and stuff like that. So it's really a good thing to be able to rely on external libraries.
Okay, I see. What happens to replication if version of collation libraries is different between master and replica?
If it's different, likely you will have your replica will be broken. So if you run some queries on your replica, you can get like wrong results, different results, depending on what specific collection library you have on the replica. But it happened quite often on the mailing list. People are saying, oh, I don't understand on my replica. I always never see the row, and I can reindex as many times as I want, and it never shows up. And the answer is always different version of glibc or ICU.
So what is the best scenario for such an upgrade when you have a cluster of, say, one master and one replica, and you want to upgrade libc or ICU version? So if you reindex reindex on master, so then this index may become invalid for slave.
And you want to do almost no shutdown upgrade. That's tricky. I don't think you can actually do that because at some point you have to switch on a version with a new version of the collection and reindex as fast as possible. So maybe you can do that with a logical replication. You can set up like a logical standby, replicate everything, upgrade to the new collection and reindex, and do a switchover, and then build a physical replica from that. But it's a lot of work, and you still have some like caveats on logical replication, like DDL is not replicated. Sequence can be a bit problematic. So it's a big project. You have to check for everything, but you can do that this way, but it will take a lot of time, like beforehand, and to run everything. So you just trade like maybe half an hour or an hour or downtime for like weeks of works outside to have like a minimal shutdown.
Okay, thank you. So better, in some cases, better is not to upgrade anything. Just if it works, don't touch it. Okay, thank you very much, Julien.
Thank you.
It's a very hot topic, especially for Russian language, because we have our own alphabet and our own collation and so on. Yeah, thank you. Now, Julien, there is a special chat on the conference platform when you can chat with other participants. Maybe you will get some questions there. So now,
sure.
please proceed there. Thank you very much. And for everybody, I want to once more to remind that we have lightning talks. And Julien, maybe you want to apply for a lightning talk. The lightning talk session will be tomorrow before the conference closing. So you may submit your lightning talk at the conference platform at a special page. And probably all the lightning talks will be accepted, and you will have 5 minutes to speak tomorrow. Okay, and please don't forget to rate the talks you listen to. Don't forget to give your star to Julien, because he worked good. So thank you very much, Julien.
Спасибо.
Yeah. See you and welcome.
Bye-bye.